Deuteronomy, Devarim 16:13. It says, perform the festival of Sukkot, of booths. You know that Sukkah is singular, Sukkot is plural. You know that. So, for 7 days after the ingathering from your threshing floor and from your winepress. And this is the command. You shall rejoice in your festival. You shall rejoice in your festival. All right, as long as you get that. So, but each one with the gift of his hand, this is an interesting thing, but each one with the gift of his hand, according to the blessing of our Father, which he has given you. So what do we bring? What do we bring when we come for full enjoyment? What do you bring? It's according to the blessing of Yahweh Elohim, which he has given you. Has the Father shared, gave you anything, any revelation, do you have a testimony for this year that we've been through, this time from last year until now? That's what we bring to the Feast of Sukkot, is that what the Father has been sharing with you, and that where you have grown, your experience in our community and outside of the goodness of the Father. Spiritual blessing, material blessing, everything that you have is for the benefit of the kingdom and our Father. This is what we bring. So what you'll be glad to know is that the first day of Sukkot, the parasha is read of Leviticus 23. Okay, so this is what we are doing tonight. So because we've got a time restraint, we're not going to read the whole thing. We're only going to read from 33 to 44. That's the better news. The best news, however, is we're only going to focus on verse 39 to 44. Okay. So, pardon? Where am I now? Ek het nie gehoor nie. Okay, moenie worry nie. So, what is Leviticus 23 about though? Appointments. And it starts where? Where does it start in Leviticus? It says, pardon? It starts at the Sabbath. Yes, it starts at the Sabbath, and it speaks about the realities of Sabbath. What do we celebrate in the Sabbath? Our Father is the Creator and Messiah is the King of the 7th millennium. That's what we celebrate. And then we start with Pesach, when you come into the covenant, and with unleavened bread, identifying with the sinless life of Yeshua, and He's the first fruits of the resurrection. Then you go to Shavuot, and you receive the word of truth and the Spirit that we are equipped in the whole summer season to go through life so that we can spread the kingdom story across the globe. And then this time of the year happens. And so the story of Leviticus 23, let's just read this. Verse 39 says, on the 15th day, and the reason why we start with 39 is because verse 34 speaks about the same thing. It's repeated. It's basically a repetition. That's the first half. So we're only going to read this. On the 15th day of the 7th month, when you gather in the fruit of the land, observe the festival of Yotevavhe for 7 days. On the first day is a rest, and on the 8th day is a rest. Why will it be a rest on the first day and on the 8th day? It is Shabbatot, I agree, it's Shabbat. I'm just wondering why. Will there be a specific reason for that? It's an open question. I don't know if I've got the answer. Why will it begin with a Shabbat and why will it end with a Shabbat? Which days do we tend to dedicate the most in our relationship with the Father? The Shabbat. So if the word says we begin this festival with a Shabbat and we end this festival with a Shabbat, it is an opportunity for us to celebrate it completely with focus on those 2 days, especially. So this is what we do, is the 8th day, Shemini Atzeret, is a rest, where we restart the Torah cycle for next year. But verse 40 says, and you shall take for yourselves on the first day the fruit of a good tree, branches of the palm tree, twigs of leafy trees, and willows of the stream, and shall rejoice before our Yotevavhe, our Elohim, for 7 days. Now what does it look like? It looks like this. This is Christus. This is a palm branch. And this is a leafy branch. And this is a A myrtle. Yes. And this is a Itrex, supposed to be an Itrex. Oh. This is cinnamon. Yeah, it's supposed to be an Itrex. So what is this? Why is it necessary? What does it signify? Whoops, what's the symbol of it? What is the symbol of these things? What do you think? What's it? Harvesting? Well, this is the Itrex, definitely so. We are in a time of fruitfulness and so forth. What does the Itrex symbolize in our lives? There are four things, four elements to that combination. Firstly, the Itrex has got a good smell, it's got a good taste. That's what our lives should resemble. The goodness, the fruit that we should have. Then the dates, because it speaks of the palm trees, which is the dates. And that's got a sweet taste, no smell. Okay? So if you live your life and in the community that you live in, you give to the people a good taste of the kingdom, but there's no smell to your life, then you're not really hitting the mark as you should. What about the leafy tree? It's a willow. No, is it a willow? No, it's not the willow. The leafy is the myrtle tree. So the myrtle tree, what is the myrtle known for? Smell. It's known for the smell, the fragrance that it gives. No fruit though, but it gives a wonderful smell. So if the fragrance of your life is like the kingdom and it reminds the people around you of the kingdom, it's wonderful. Where's the fruit of your life? You should be like an Itrex. So what about a willow? I wonder what that means. Anyways, no smell, no taste, no nothing. So that is one of the messages of this lulav, is that in the completeness of it, the completeness of those branches, we symbolize the goodness of what the Father wants in our life. So this is where we should be. There's another interpretation of the palm branch being the backbone. There's all sorts of interpretations of what the lulav is. The important thing is what? We should have one. That's the important thing. Why? Why should we have one? It is a reminder of what the Father is doing in our lives, and it doesn't really say. I think in the modern translation it should have been, and you shall take for yourself on the first day a iPad, and on the second day you should take for yourself a cell phone, and then a laptop, and on the third day the desktop, and celebrate it at the stream of the. I don't know where it is, but the fact of the matter is, in the olden days when life was good and simple and focused on the Father, we could celebrate it together as a community. And why do we wave it in all four directions? Seems like I'm asking all the questions, but yeah, okay. So you wave it, your favorite text, to the call forth the nations of the east and the west and the south, and that's what happens. Okay, but what was man's call right in the beginning with Adam? What did the Father give to Adam? What was his instruction to him? Fruitful and multiply is one of those, and you should have dominion over the earth. And this is why I think we do this, north, south, west. It is because the Father's kingdom, if we are children of the kingdom, and we are here as an example of what the kingdom would be, the dominion over north, east, south, west should be ours in Messiah. So 41 says, and you shall observe it as a festival for Adonai for 7 days in the year, a law forever in your generations. Observe it in the 7th month. Okay, in the 7th month. Let's not go that direction, sorry about that. So, verse 42, Leviticus 23:42. Dwell in booths for 7 days. All our native Israelites dwell in booths, so that your generations know that I made the children of Israel dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Mitzrayim. I am Yehovah your Elohim. Thus did Moses speak to the appointed times of our father to the children of Israel. And that's what Leviticus 23 says. What shall we do? What is our instruction for Sukkot? What shall we do? First thing, rejoice. Why do we rejoice? the goodness of, you know what Sukkot really is if you read through Leviticus 23, it is the age that we are living in. It speaks of how we come in, we realize the goodness of the Father from creation, from the beginning to the age to come, from the beginning of this age when our Father created until the age when Messiah reigns. It encapsulates all with the Shabbat. Then the Pesach is our coming into the covenant and our equipping to live in this life up to Yom Kippur. This is this age. It speaks about this age. And Sukkot is not this age. Sukkot is a glimpse in the age to come. That's why if you and I are believers, what do we believe in though? We believe that we will be resurrected in the age to come. That will cause a certain amount of joy in our lives, don't you think? Hope so. You know? So, why do we celebrate and why do we have joy in Sukkot? It's because we've got a hope and a promise of celebrating the Sukkot with our Father in the millennium. So there are, at the end of Bamidbar, at the end of Numbers, the book of Numbers, there is a Torah portion, Ma'aseh. How many stopovers does it have? 42. Yes. Where did we begin and where did we end? Started at Sukkot and he ended at the Promised Land. Well, it started in Egypt, and then the first camp was Sukkot, and it ended in Egypt. So it progressed through 42 camps up to the Promised Land. All right, and I'll have to hurry this up because I only got half an hour. So, where does Leviticus 23, where does that take us? Leviticus 23 takes us from our experience of humanity. It takes us to the millennium in Sukkot. That's where it takes us. So as the 42 stopovers in the wilderness took us from Egypt to the Promised Land, the Leviticus 23 appointments takes us from creation until the Promised Land, until the millennium. That's why we should celebrate in Sukkot. So, how is it a representation of the kingdom? How is Sukkot a representation of the kingdom? What in the festival of Sukkot points to that? What do you think? Now you'll have to speak louder than that. Well, it's the Prince of Peace is going to be the king. He's the one that is going to rule. Yes, so it is the millennium of peace, for sure. Anything else? The Father is dwelling with us, and He's dwelling amongst us. So that makes it exceptionally good. That makes it what it is. So I think the whole time, the whole millennium of Sukkot, is we are coming back into our original intent, where a Father has put us on the earth for a reason. And if we live in His sight and in His presence, and we can glorify His name, and each one of us can sit under His vine and under His fig tree and study the Word and speak of the goodness of the Father, that is more or less where we want to be, isn't it? So, that's why these things are a celebration. There's one problem though. Have you looked here? Have you seen this? Think about the Sukkah. What is the instruction for the Sukkah? What does it say? Sukkot, it says somewhere. Dwell in booths. Know that I made the children of Israel dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Israel. Dwell in booths for 7 days. Who must dwell in booths? All who are native Israelites dwell in booths. So what about you and I? Where is the instruction for you and I to dwell in booths? It's not there. There's no such instruction. It's for the native-born Israelite. So everybody's neck hair is standing upright and ready to throw me with something, I know. Just hang in there. So, it says, what will happen? What's one of the big things in Sukkot, in the time of the millennium? You remember? It is when the weapons, when the swords and everything will be beaten into plowshares, and we will farm like Chris is farming at the moment. Things will be good and great, and we'll enjoy life out on the farm. Planting tomatoes, you think? All right, and then I hear Chris is doing planting, wonderful. And Envy is not the right thing to do, but anyways, that's where we go to. And so, if we are prohibited from, if the Word doesn't make provision for us to dwell in a sukkah, how do we do it? Why do we do it? Why can we stand here and encourage everybody to build a sukkah? We are building. Did you, by the way, see we are building in one just next door here on this nice green lawn of ours? Yeah, busy, and we're going to celebrate it together. Why are we building one then? If the Word says the native born should build it. Why? Practicing. Okay, yes, practicing is good. Yes, sure. Okay, all right, so that's what the Torah says. The Torah says that if we are joining Israel, we should be treated as a native born. And that's exactly what we're doing. And that is the only reason why we're doing it, because we're taking hold of the kingdom. And how do we take hold of the kingdom? Matthew 5:19 says, speaking about the Torah, says, "But whoever does this and teaches them, he shall be called great in the kingdom of heavens." And remember, chapter 5 is all about the life of Torah. It's the life of Torah in our new covenant situation. So, before we speak about the sukkah, let's just think about the outpouring of the Ruach. Who received the outpouring of the Ruach in the temple on Shavuot? Who do you think? Firstly, the 12 disciples, tongues of fire. So Peter was all excited and he came out of the temple and he preached in the precincts, and what happened? 3,000 people came to faith and belief in Messiah, and they heard him speak in their languages. There's a manifestation of the Spirit in their midst. Who were they? They were Jews from all over in foreign countries living around Israel. Okay? So, was that the Joel 2:28 outpouring? It says, after this. After what? After what? Joel 2 speaks about the day of our Father. So, after this it shall be that I pour out my Spirit on all flesh. Your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your old men dream dreams, and your young men see visions. There will come a time that our experience is exactly like the native born. But you and I, who are believers, are taking hold of the kingdom right now in Messiah. Because as Joshua said, if we become a believer in the God of Israel, then we become part of Israel. As Ephesians 2, all over in Scripture it says that. So, the purpose of those people, the purpose of the native born, are to be priests to the nations. And as we become part of the household of Israel, so we become priests to our neighbors. Remember? So this is what we're doing. So what we are doing is, if we are building a sukkah, is we are not explicitly commanded to do so, you and I. But what we do is, as the Ruach is imparted into our lives, and we become part of the household of Israel, we start to do that. We start to build a sukkah, and we get a glimpse of what the kingdom is like, and we've got a Ruach within us. And when we do, we proclaim as if this is already the millennium. Because if you build a sukkah, remember, what is a sukkah? Is a sukkah set apart or not? Do you think? A holy sukkah? You think? A set apart sukkah. What's that? Well, it's holy enough then. So, why is it set apart? Why is a sukkah set apart? Why can we say it is set apart? For what purpose is a sukkah built? Only for the purpose of celebration in Sukkot. If these days are gone, it is just a flimsy structure out in my yard that I need to break down. That's all it is. It's only of a symbolic effect right in this period. And therefore it is set apart for us to get a glimpse of what the kingdom is within that little structure. When we go in there and we eat and we drink with friends and we celebrate the goodness of the Father and we read and we pray and we speak to friends, remember joy. We can't be mournful or speak about things that are sorrowful or negative ideas when we are celebrating together. That's just not on. All right. it is set apart for the purpose of celebrating Sukkot. So that's a bit of a difficult statement, but really, if you think about it, if you build a little sukkah out in your garden and you celebrate it for what it is, it becomes a little place in the kingdom for 7 days. It becomes almost like a sanctuary. It is, because it is there for a specific purpose. Is to celebrate the goodness and the faithfulness of our Father in this age and in the age to come. And you and I are testimonies of what it means to live a kingdom life. So if we are living a kingdom life now, then the realities of the kingdom are already within us. You agree? So, if your children falls in the garden, if you've got small children, take them into your sukkah. Wipe their tears. There will be joy for morning. Make it a expression of what the kingdom is. Because remember, this is what's going to happen to us when we are celebrating the millennium, one day when it comes. So, everything that we are struggling with right now will come to an end, and it will be turned on its head, meant for joy and peace and goodness in the face of the Father, living with Him. Because living in the millennium is to celebrate it with our Father, with Messiah, in the kingdom. So, that's about my speech. That was short enough, don't you think? Okay, so now you begin. Let's just read through Zechariah. We're going to read through Zechariah 14 and Isaiah 11. And as we do, and things, you're reminded of something, you want to share something, then let's do it. Let's just speak through it. So, Zechariah 14:1 says, See, a day shall come for Yotevaphe, and your spoil shall be divided in your midst. So, if you read through this chapter, it starts off very difficult, because verse 2 and 3 is not very cheery. It is very gloomy. Okay? But this is the encouraging text. Verse 1. What does that say? See, a day shall come for Yotevaphe, and your spoil shall be divided in your midst. What does it mean? There was a war. That's what it means. There was a war. Who are the victors? Yes, we are the victors because we are dividing the spoil. The spoils of war, that's what we are dividing. Okay? That's the first sentence. That is what will carry us through the rest. Because the rest says, And I shall gather the Gentiles to battle against Jerusalem, and the city shall be taken, and the houses plundered, and the women ravished, and half of the city will go into exile, but the remnant of the people shall not be cut off from the city. And Yotevaphe shall go forth, and he shall fight against those nations as he fought in the day of battle, or as he fights in the day of battle. So what will happen? Jerusalem will go through a terrible time, but you should hold on to the promise that the Father is with us and that we will be the victors at the end. And the remnant of believers will be taken through times of difficulty, times of trial. So yes, for us to reach the millennium will mean difficulty. But there will be a day of victory in our future. Verse 4 says, and in that day let's go back one. Verse 3, and who shall go forth? Is there anyone that reads something else here? Who shall go forth? And Yotevaphe shall go forth, and he shall fight against those Gentiles as he fights in the day of battle. Do you agree with me? That's what's standing there. Right, verse 4 says, and in that day his feet, whose feet? Will stand on the Mount of Olives, which faces Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall split in two, from the east to the west, a very great valley. And half of the mountain shall move towards the north, and half towards the south. And you shall flee to the valley of my mountain. For the valley of the mountains reaches to Azal, where that is. And you shall flee as you fled the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, the king of Judah. And Yotevaphe my Elohim shall come, and the set apart ones with you. And in that day it shall be that there is no light, it's dark. And it shall be one day which is known to our Father only, neither day nor night, but at evening time there shall be light. And in that day it shall be that the living waters flow from Jerusalem, half towards the eastern sea, half towards the western sea, in the summer as well in the winter. And our Father shall be sovereign over all the earth. In that day there shall be one Yotevavhe, and his name is one. All the land shall be changed into the word desert is not really the word desert. It says a plain. Desert seems arid, barren, no life. So, Arava is the word. Arava is the word. It is a plain. Into a desert plain from Geba to Rimmon, south of Jerusalem, and it shall be raised up in the inhabited inner place from Benjamin's gate to the place of the first gate to the corner gate, and from the tower of Hananiel and the winepress of the sovereign. You get the picture? I hope you do, because I don't really know how that works. So, verse 11, and they shall dwell in her. In whom? In Jerusalem. See, after the day of the battle, when half of the city was destroyed, everything was blown to pieces, it shall be rebuilt, and it shall be glorious when they shall dwell in her, and there shall be no more utter destruction, but Jerusalem shall be safely inhabited. Okay? Anything you want to say in these texts? Just go for it. So, and this is the plague with which Yotevavhe plagues all the people who fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall decay while they stand on their feet, and their eyes decay in their sockets, and their tongues decay in their mouths. And it shall be in that day that a great confusion from Yotevavhe is among them, and every one of them shall seize the hand of his neighbor, and his hand rise up against his neighbor's hand. And Judah shall fight at Jerusalem as well, and the wealth of all the Gentiles, all the nations around about, shall be gathered together, gold, silver, and garments in great quantities. So also is the plague on the horse and the mule and the camel and the donkey and all the cattle in whose camps as this plague. There are difficult times, extremely difficult times. But the goodness of this is this is our Father's doing. This is, if we are fighting with Him, if we are walking our walk with Him, and if we are staying part of the remnant, if we are found within Him, we will be part of those who shares the spoils. You agree? Very quiet. So, verse 16. And it shall be that all who are left from the nations, which comes up at Jerusalem, shall go up from year to year to bow themselves to the King, Yotevavhe of hosts, to observe the festival of Sukkot. So this festival here is a mark in history where the nations submit themselves completely to our Father. Where we will go up year to year to celebrate the goodness of the King, because when this time of turmoil and difficulty ends, what is ahead of us? What is ahead of everybody that remains? The goodness of the millennium, the reign of the King, the Prince of Peace. He reigns, and it will be a millennium of peace and prosperity and goodness. We will grow in our relationship with the Father. So, and it shall be that if any one of the clans of the earth does not come up to Jerusalem to bow himself to the sovereign of Yahweh of hosts, on them there is no rain. And if the clan of Mitzrayim, Africa, does not come up to enter in, there's no rain. On them there is a plague with which Yotevavhe plagues the Gentiles, the nations, who do not come up to deserve the festival of booths. So why do we have a head start? Why do we start to celebrate this festival now? Because it appears that it is important for our Father to celebrate this. If we are part of the kingdom, if we are the heirs of the kingdom, His children, then we want to please Him with everything that we do. Is that right? So it is important for us, for our Father, that the goodness of the kingdom that is proclaimed. Remember what they did Israel did in the wilderness when they turned around from the borders of Israel and say, it's not for us. Remember that? That generation died out. So we are to embrace the values of the kingdom and look at what it means and what the Father presents for us and celebrate it. And how do we celebrate that? With joy. Where do we celebrate it? Amongst friends. Where does the friends meet? In your sukkah. If you haven't built a sukkah this year, build it next year. Because we are going through this year by year, and we learn together, and we are equipped to do it better and better and better every year. This is why it's called a dress rehearsal. Remember? But I want to encourage you tomorrow to go out and to build, to plant 4 posts and say, this is a small part of the kingdom right here in my garden. And to celebrate the goodness of this kingdom right here where we are. Verse 19 says, this is the punishment of Mitzrayim, all of the Gentiles who does not observe. Why do we need to be punished? If we do not honor the will and the way of our Father, even in the millennium, there's going to be consequences. But I think we are equipped right now, and this is why our ways are being restored, so that we learn what brings pleasure to the King, what brings pleasure to our Father. What He loves, we love. What He hates, we hate. So that we can live a life that is directed at loving our Father and living in His presence. So, that's Zechariah 14. Do you want to do Isaiah 11? As long as there's an answer.
Zechariah 14, verse 3 speaks about and verse 4 says, and he shall stand on the mountain of God.
Who's going to be in the temple in the most holy place? Who's going to be in the most holy place? Yeshua is the king, the high priest, remember still? Who's going to be on the throne in the most holy place? Read Revelation 1. It says, our Father, the one who is and was and is to come. So yes, our Father is coming to town, if I can say that. It's coming to Jerusalem. So, for sure. I think you're right. It's a good answer. Thank you, Lord. All right, so let's go. Don't spoil a mystery with an answer. So, Isaiah 11:1 says, and a rod shall come from the stump of Yeshai, and a sprout from his root shall bear fruit. And the Spirit of Adonai shall rest upon him. Who's it speaking about? The Spirit of wisdom, understanding, counsel, might, spirit, knowledge, and the fear of Adonai. And he shall make him breathe in the fear, in the yireh of Adonai, and he shall not judge by his sight. Does that sound familiar if you read the apostolic scriptures? This sort of appears over and over in the apostolic scriptures. So, but with righteousness he will judge the poor, and he shall decide the straightness for the meek ones of the earth, and shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth, and shall slay the wrong with the breath of his lips. He's coming back as a king, ready to stand for righteousness and justice. And that what went wrong on the earth shall be dealt with. And we will stand with the king. And we will live in his presence. So, Rosie. And righteousness shall be the girdle of his loins, and trustworthiness the girdle of his waist. And the wolf shall dwell with the lamb. This is millennium talk. See? So, Isaiah 11:1, Messiah came, and he was equipped with everything that he needed. And when he comes again, this will be the reality. The wolf shall dwell with the lamb, the leopard lie down with the young goat, and the calf with a young lion. And what will they be doing together? Fatling together. And the little child will lead them. No danger. The danger has been removed. And the cow and the bear shall feed, the young ones lie down together, and the lion eats straw like an ox. And the nursing child shall play at the cobra's hole. We are back in the garden. That's where we are. We are in the place where we're in the Father's presence, and that we are living a life the way He intended from the beginning. They do no evil nor destroy in all my set apart mountain, for my earth shall be filled with the knowledge of Yotevavhe as the waters covers the sea. And in that day there shall be a root of Yeshai standing as a banner to the people. So, if ever you wondered if Yeshua, the one that came, the root of Yeshai, is the same one that comes again, let's make it sort of clear. Unto him that the nations shall seek, and his rest shall be esteemed, glory. His rest shall be glory. Remember Hebrews 4 that we worked through? And it shall be in that day that Yotevavhe sets his hand against the second time to recover the remnant of his people who are left from Assyria, from Mitzrayim, all the neighboring places. And he shall raise a banner for the nations. Remember where in Revelations it says that he's the King of Kings with his name written on his robe? You remember that? Okay, I think this is more or less the root text for that. It says, he shall raise a banner for the nations and gather the outcast of Israel and assemble the dispersed of Yehuda from the four corners of the earth. Yosha. Yes, Matthew 24, the signs of the Son of Man in the heavens, I agree. So, but remember, this already occurred because we saw his foot on the mountain already in 6 verses ago. So, after he has returned, this is starting to happen. So, the beginning time of the millennium is going to be a shaky time. The beginning of the millennium is going to be sorting out the mess. Okay? This is what's going to happen. So, and the envy of Ephraim shall turn aside. Man, that will be a great day. And the adversaries of Yehuda be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Yehuda, and Yehuda not trouble Ephraim. Well, anti-Semitism at the end, all of this will end in the sight of Messiah. But they shall fly down upon the shoulder of the Philistines. Who's the they? And they shall fly down upon the shoulder of the Philistines. Who are the they? Yes, Judah and Ephraim, those that are assembled in the area. What are they going to do to the Philistines though? Toward the west. Together they plunder the people of the east. Their hands stretching forth Edom and Moab, and the children of Ammon shall be subject to them. The beginning of the millennium is going to be full of dramatic events. It doesn't start out with sing and song and dance and just peace. It starts off like that in Jerusalem, but then the nation is purged of evil. So, and Yotevavhe shall put under ban the tongue of the sea of Mitzrayim. Help me understand that. And Yotevavhe shall put under the ban, that means to eradicate, to clean, the tongue of the sea of Mitzrayim. What does that mean? What's that? Yeah, that's what it is. Because the tongue of the sea of Mitzrayim is the Red Sea. That's what divides between Israel and Africa. So it will dry up, because if you follow the text, it says, and he shall wave his hands over the river with the might of his spirit, and he shall smite it with 7 streams, and shall cause men to tread it in sandals. It becomes dry so that we can walk in it. And there shall be a highway for the remnant of his people, those left from Assyria, and as it was for Israel in the day when they come up of the land of Mitzrayim. So, that's what it is. As redemption draws to an end. The time of redemption at the millennium is drawing to an end. And you and I have got a role to play. You know? Firstly, what we do is, in the here and now, if we are celebrating Sukkot, how do we do it? With friends and family. Where do we do it? Primarily in our sukkah. What is our enjoyment like? What is our celebrations like? Joyful. Because if you're not, we are not walking according to the mitzvot. Because to be joyous is a mitzvot. Remember, you could not be mournful in the sight of a king in his throne room. Because if you did, dead. Yes. So, it is a command for us to be joyous in this time. If you enjoy it or not, you will enjoy it. If you like it or not. So, for us to celebrate this, it is a good thing for us to walk through this and to, as a dress rehearsal, enjoy it with friends. Get familiar with the territory, with the scenery of the kingdom. Decorate your little sukkah so that it appears more to be like the kingdom. Use your imagination. Use whatever talents you have to glorify our Father in this time. Because this next couple of days is a special time in this cycle, in this annual cycle, where we are celebrating everything we've been working up towards over the last year. So, let the redeemed of our Father say so. Amen.